I've brought all of the pieces that we've been working on up on the screen. I've got my fitted princess blouse, the fitted sleeve, and my blouse with extra fullness. Don't need to sew the darts out, with the sleeve that has extra fullness in the cap, but the fullness is balanced. So I'm going to make two different models from that. You can always go back to your original to pull things out. If you're going to change things a lot, make sure that you save them with a different name before you change them. Oh. Create, edit, model, add pieces. And fitted princess blouse. Okay. All 4 pieces. Say okay. And I already have some in there, so I'm going to cancel those, but I now have my sleeve. And now I want to do the other one. And this time blouse with fullness. And that's ready. So you're ready to take a screenshot of these pieces to upload to Canvas, and some of you want me to review that, so a screenshot is just I'm finding Word. Make sure you have a Word document open. Then I'm going to hide that. Then you can't see my hands, but I'm coming down to the keyboard, third button over on the bottom row from the left, third button over on the top, the very top row from the right that says print screen, and I've got both buttons pushed, and then I release. So that's the equivalent of copy, and now I open my Word document and right click and say paste, and there it is. And because I don't need my blouse with added fullness in this picture, I'm going to come up to format and crop. And then I'll just make it bigger so it's easier to see. And then I'm going to right click on it and come down to Save As. And I'm going to put it where I'll find it. What do I want to call it? Princess Blouse. So that it's all ready for Canvas, and then I'm going to switch it to JPEG because Canvas seems to like those better. So now all you have to do is upload it to Canvas on the page for your princess blouse. This one we're not going to sew up, but there will be a test, a skills test on how to create a princess line of some kind, and how to balance sleeve notches. So I'm not through with these. I can take these and send them to the menu. Deleting them, if I've already got them saved, is not going to delete them. So they've all got my name on them, even though that one's upside down. I can send those away and then say cancel. And now I've got those 3. So with this one, before I'm through with this piece, I'm going to be happier with it if I flip it the other way because it won't be upside down. So I'm going to say modify flip around a line, choose this one, say OK. We balanced it before, I just need to delete this line. And I don't need that one either. So I can just say save, and that one would be ready to finalize, but in addition to making a sleeve, we're also going to make a collar and add a placket so that it folds back and opens down the front and has buttons. And we really should make a cuff to go on this, but I don't think this is big enough for a cuff, so we might have to add a little bit more to it. Verify line length. That's 7 inches. That is skin tight on most people. So I think if we want to put one tuck in there, we need to add at least 2 inches to it. And that would be minimal. You can add more if you want to. So I'm going to move this out on both sides, and I think I'm going to rotate this line out 1 inch. So that will be modify line, rotate, select the line to rotate, end selection to continue. This is the line. Say OK. Select the point to rotate around, that one. Now it's moving. And if you look over here, you can see how much it's moving. So none of those really make sense, but they are moving in a positive way. And you can see what the angle is. And I'm going to switch to value and type, oh, there it is. It says positive is this way, so I'm just going to add 1. That's going to be kind of snug. I'm going to add 1.25. You can add 3 inches if you want to. And then I'm going to do the same thing up here. And the point to rotate around. And this time it's negative. So I've still got a balanced sleeve. It's big enough to add a tuck back here that's 1 inch deep on both sides, or 2 tucks that are a 1/2 inch. I'm going to put in, mark a placket, and then put a tuck behind it. So I want my placket to be exactly 1/4 of the way back on the back side of the sleeve. So if the line measures 9.5, 9.55 divided by 4 equals 2.3875. So I'm going to add a line, create a 2-point line, and I'm going to right click, and I want it to start at a distance from a point. So I'm going to choose this point. It's clockwise, and my number was 2.387. I could have just put in 4. 2.4. I think it will be happier with that, but I have 2 points. Okay. And now I want the line, you can't see it, but I want it to be horizontal. So as I pull that up, it's moving horizontally in either direction. And I want my placket to be 2 inches long. So I'm going to come over here and say value, and then I'll highlight and say 2 inches. Say apply. Oh, but it needed to be negative. Negative. Apply and OK. All right, we'll pause there. Save your piece. Now we're going to make a cuff. This little placket usually has 1/4 of an inch seam allowance on each side. We aren't going to treat it like regular seam allowance, but we're going to make a piece that we're going to subtract 1/2 an inch. So we're going to make a piece that's 9 inches rectangle by, you can decide how wide your cuff's going to be, but you'll need to double it. So if my cuff is going to be 1.5 inches wide, then I would make it 3 inches by 9 inches. So I'm going to come up to create rectangle, select the corner. I want to do it by value because I have an exact measurement, but I still have to select the corner. I'm going to switch from distance to X, and that's the one I want 3 inches. You can make it wider or narrower. And my Y is going to be 9. And say OK, and there's your piece. And we're going to call it cuff. Sleeve cuff. And it would be smart to put, if it's your final project or something, you might want to put P1 for project 1 or something, so that if you have more than one cuff, you don't have a problem. So I'm through with that. I need to say cancel. So now I've got this piece. It's my cuff. It will sew on. Oh, well, that's not true. That's not really what I want. That's the size of the piece if I don't want to take it in. But we really want it to finish at maybe 7.5 inches, and you can choose to put a tuck in it or gather along here. So this is not the right length. So decide how much cuff circumference you want. I want 7.5 inches. So I'm going to verify my line length. Say OK. And instead of 9, I'm going to modify, offset, select the line to offset, and say OK. And I want to subtract 1.5 inches. So -1.5. So now it's 7.5 inches, and we'll add seam allowance to that, and it can overlap. If I want it to overlap, maybe I want it bigger, but I'm going to leave it there. You decide how big you want your cuff to be. But this one, I'm going to edit my annotation right here. switch to 0.25 and put cuff on it. Copy and put that right there. So unfortunately, we'll say okay to that one. I'll need to move it. I should have copied it before I typed in cuff. Well, so now you're going to know all the things not to do. This time we're going to move it. There we go. Well, in spite of me, we did it. Now, I don't know how I got it upside down, but I did. Well, it's because this one's upside down. How do I know it's upside down? The grain line has a line on it and it's going the wrong direction. We're going to leave that alone. I'll accept it. I won't give you negative credit, but try to know not to do that by the time you get to your project. Okay, so we have a cuff now. That one has been saved. These have been saved, but this one needs to go to the model too. And you can wait until you've got all of the pieces done, but sometimes you don't know when you're going to have to leave, so I'm just keeping up with them. So now I'm going to make my collar. You're going to make your collar exactly... No, I'm not, because we're going to add the extension on the front first. So I'm not going to do anything to change the back. We're just going to leave it the way it is. And then I'll need to make we'll do the extension last because the collar's going to turn out the same either way. So I'm going to adjust this so it's touching over here so we can trace off a collar. Modify, set rotate, select a match point on the target piece. This time we want to start at the inside corner of the neck. Go with the inside corner of the neck on the back and that same line. Alright, now ordinarily I would say cancel. But do you remember how when you make a collar you have to overlap it and bring it around, depending on whether you're going to have a collar stand or not? So I'm going to say cancel, but I'm going to come in here if I want to and put a line over here so that I know what kind of collar I'm going to put on. So if I want a flat collar, and you'll remember this from the collar section in books, then you have to overlap it a minimum of a ½ inch. And if you're going to have a full roll collar, you have to overlap it 4 inches. So I'm going to go with 2½ inches and we'll have a partial roll collar. You can choose the collar that you want to, but get out your pattern making book and go to the collar chapter and pick one out that just fits in a regular neckline so you don't have to change the neck. If you're feeling brave and you want to change the neckline shape, that's fine too, but we're just going to make a little Peter Pan partial roll collar. So I'm going to create a line by offsetting it evenly. I'm going to choose the line I want to offset and I'm going to pull it over here and I can see how far it's coming. And there is 2½. So when I rotate this piece, if I want to be precise, I want this edge to match that without the dart. So just temporarily, I'm going to advanced, manipulate dart, select the dart to rotate, choose the rotation point location. I'm just going to use the end and the hold line and the opening point, and I'm just going to put it right there temporarily and say OK. And I'm going to leave it there so it's easier for me to put back where it was. Well, in fact, if I don't save it, and I'm not going to do anything to it that will require saving, that will just disappear. So now I can rotate that over to here and know that it's in the right place. Modify, rotate piece. Select the piece to rotate. It will go clockwise, and clockwise is selected. Choose the piece, say OK. Select the point to rotate around. It has to be that corner on the neckline, and now it's moving. And I can set that down. I can zoom in a little bit, but that's where I want it to be. So the next thing I need to do is offset these two pieces the amount that I want my collar to roll. And if I want it to stand up an inch and back and come back down, I need it to be 2.5 inches wide. So I'm going to go back to create line, offset, and I'm going to create both of these necklines. I'm going to choose, say OK. It's set up to choose a line to guide the movement, and I'm going to come out. That's not very big. You can decide how wide you want it. I'm going to go with 2 3/4 and say OK. So I want to clean this up. So I'm going to put a connector line between those two. Create 2-point curve. Start here, end about here. Bring it out so that it lines up nicely with both of them. And I'm going to do the same thing here on the neck because we don't want a little point there on the neck. So I'm going to want a notch straight out from here. I'm going to put it between the two. So, well, I can add that back later, would probably be the better choice. So I'm going to trace off my color. If I want to have a curved line here, I can make a curved line. If I want to have a pointy line, I can do that. I think I'm going to make mine pointy just so you can see, well, a 2-point curve. I could do one that starts here and ends here and have it curved. Or I can have a pointy one that comes down. So you can choose whatever shape of collar you want. The important requirements are that it fits the neckline, it has a notch that matches the shoulder from both directions, and that it's a partial roll collar, which means you have to figure out how to align both pieces together and make sure that they're overlapped. And you'll need to have a center back notch, and you'll need to have a right angle here and here. So create piece trace, choose the line, and I want this part of this. Nope, I don't want that. I want that one. And then this one and this one. No, that one, and then that one. If this is successful, I'll keep it. If not, I will start splitting lines. Now, it would have been smart for me to have chosen that center back line for a grain line, but we'll fix it. And it's labeled, not in the way I would like, but it is labeled. So I'm going to change my piece name to collar for the blouse with fullness. And then to finish my collar, I need to fix my grain and I need to move this. So I'm going to start by changing the grain, and that's modify, set rotate, select a straight line somewhere, and the line that you choose on the second piece has to be wider than the line you choose on the second piece. That's the first time we would have run into that, really. So cancel. So now it's in the right direction, and I'm going to change my grain. So realign, check the grain line box, and now the grain is fixed. So I'm going to move it to the side. Let's find out if we can flip that annotation. Edit annotation. Select the existing annotation. I'm going to change it so it's 0.25 because it's going to be too big. And I'm going to move it. And I can rotate it. Oh, there it is. It will be right side up. So I'm going to move it again. There we go. Except that's not the map, so it needs to say color. And size 8, 2 on the fold. Do we really want to do 2? I should show you how to make an undercollar. So I'm going to say 1 on fold. Apply and OK. So I need to put my notch on. So I'm going to delete all of, well, I don't have to, it'll just disappear. So I'm going to come into verify line length, and I need to measure both of the front and back neck. So we have that, and I need to merge the extra lines that we've got on that piece. Modify line combine, not merge, clockwise and in order, OK. Clockwise and in order, OK. Because of the process this will go through, I would clean up those grade points. Because we're not going to be grading, it just adds an extra degree of difficulty. Edit point. Make sure it says apply to both ends. Delete button, apply. Delete button, apply. Slide, release, delete button, apply, touch in the water, hold, slide, highlight the line till you get to it, release, delete button, and apply. And while we're here, we're going to fix the grain line so that it's not outside the piece. Modify, line, adjust. Touch the line, choose the end you're changing, slide it over, set it down, say OK. Done. Now, I don't really like the shape of that curve right there, so create 2-point curve. Say OK. Split the line right there again. Modify line, split. Modify line, swap. Choose this one. Trade it for that one. Delete the old one. Oh, I didn't choose line. It's funny, the computer just can't read my mind unless I tell it. Modify line, combine, touch, touch, right click, OK. Alright, this looks a little weird right here. And if you look at the instructions in the book, it will have you do a couple of things. You're going to trim off 1/4 of an inch of that. Oops. And you're going to raise this a little bit. So create 2-point curve, right click, distance from point. And I'm doing this from memory. If the book says a different number, use what the book says. But as I recall, I usually end up cutting 1/4 of an inch off of those when I forget. So it's going to be negative 0.25. Say OK. And then I'm going to switch to 2-point curve. So it started in the right place, and I'm going to pull it out here and blend it. I need to see it closer. Well, what was that? And how do I have 2 of them? Oh, well, that's interesting. I need to right click and say end line. Okay. So I'm going to split that line again and swap. Modify line, swap. Uh-oh. Undo. I didn't split. Okay, so we'll combine that line. Clockwise in an order. Say OK. Alright, so we need to measure this line. Verify line length. .659. And over here we have 7.659. Oh, well, that will never do. 7 minus 4.607 equals 3.052. So that's slightly less than we need to have left over. So I'm going to go ahead and add the notch at that position, and then I'm going to offset this line slightly so that it's the same. Create notch. Distance from point. 4.607 because it's going clockwise. Say OK, the notch is there. I'm going to split the line. Now I've got 3.031 and I need 3.081. So I need to offset that line 0.05. So, nope, modify still. We're in offset. Do I want to check any of those boxes? I do want a perpendicular notch perhaps. Select the line to offset. Right click. And now it's moving because I'm in cursor, but I want to switch to value, so I'm going to say, I'm going to give it a positive number, 0.05. And there it is, 3.081. So just make sure they're the same. And then give yourself a center notch right here. And it's kind of silly to put it there. It really should be on the fold. It's annoying when we plot them when they're on the fold, but because the collar's small, I'm going to have you do that with the collar. And then you can see how that works, because when you're making a full size marker, you need to have all of your pieces open for them to plot correctly. You won't be cutting them on the fold. So I'm going to come up here to modify piece, mirror. Select the mirror line on the piece to mirror. Before that, I want a notch on both ends because my other collar is going to be different and I want to make sure it lines up. And do I want to fold it after it's mirrored? Yeah, I do. So I'm going to check that box. No, I want you to see it. But it's easier if you fold it after mirror. So that's the line, and there it is open, and that's the way it will print when it comes out of the plotter. And it gave us a notch on both ends. When I save the piece and put it into manual, it will automatically fold it. So I'm going to save the piece the way that it is and say OK. And then I'm going to right click and send it to the menu. And then when I bring it down, it's automatically folded, and I'll be able to tell whether they're folded or not because this line is dotted, and that means it's on the fold and it's not the outer edge of the piece. So can you see how that works? There's also you may need to add a little bit back here based on the book, but I didn't show you and I don't want to do it now, so we can go over that again if we need to. Okay, I'm going to save that to the model. It's my blouse with fullness, and it's the collar piece. Alright, so because, did I save this one? I'm going to save this piece because I don't want that to change. And then I'm going to delete all of the pieces. So that nothing has the changes on it. So you can see there are now no changes on the pieces except for the ones that I saved. And I saved that so it has, okay, I'll just delete them all again. Alright, I'm going to pause and we'll come back and make an undercollar.